Wow, summer sure has flown by, and now we are headed into the fall and the peak of the hurricane season. El Nino, is it coming this winter? What can we expect? And how does our forecast look? Jeff and I will look at the current situation and the short and long-term forecasts in the August edition of the Water Resources Outlook.
Thanks, Todd. Well, rain has been the rule this summer across most of the southeast, and here we look at the past 30 days of precipitation and see the red to purple shaded colors across the map, indicating rainfall exceeding 5 inches in these areas, with some areas in the purple to pink colors exceeding 10 inches. The only exception is the northwestern third of Alabama and parts of Mississippi there in the upper Tombigbee River Basin, where rainfall amounts were in the 1 to 3 inch range. How does this compare to normal for this time of year? Here we have the departures from normal for the past 30 days, and we see the very spotty above normal values indicative of the convective summer storms from the Florida Panhandle and across parts of Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, as well as South Carolina. But we also see the widespread heavy rainfall we had across North Carolina and Virginia, showing amounts in some areas of 8 inches above normal. Looking back 90 days, which gives us a feeling of how the summer has gone so far as rainfall, we see again lots of purple, meaning well above normal rainfall by some 8 inches. This has kept lakes at near or to above normal levels and water resources adequate, but also, I'm sure, spoiled some summer outdoor plans. But also what it has done is kept stream flows higher than normal. We see the 28-day stream flows here above to well above normal across most of the southeast, with the exception of Alabama at this time. Across North Carolina, we are seeing 28-day stream flow values running at levels typically you see in March. And for Georgia and South Carolina, stream flows flowing at levels you would typically see in May. So not your typical August stream flows right now. This is good for drought. Here you see no drought across the southeast and only some small areas of dryness, the biggest in the upper Tombigbee River Basin there in parts of Mississippi and Alabama, but only 3% of the region seeing dry conditions. So like as I pointed out before, the wet conditions are good for keeping drought away and the lakes up, but we also have to be on guard for the inherent vulnerability for river flooding that we have set up because of the wet conditions. Though we have seen little to no tropical activity affect the southeast this year and are not anticipating any in the short term, we do see that there is a period we really ramp up as far as seeing tropical activity going all the way there to the peak there in the second week in September. So with the wet conditions and knowing we're going into this peak period, it is important to keep in mind the inherent flood vulnerability. So in the Carolinas, with the current wet conditions and reservoirs at or above target pools, we see we are probably more susceptible of river flooding at this time if we did have a tropical storm approach this area in the coming weeks. This is the same for Georgia, as you see here. Maybe not as much for the Alabama rivers. But for Florida, they are seeing very wet conditions for this time of year and are primed for flooding if a tropical system would affect the state. What will we see in the short term, and what does the long-term outlook for tropical systems look like? Todd will give some insight here now.
Thank you, Jeff. And now, since Chris is working evenings this month, I'll handle the short and long-term weather. Let's begin with where we are right now. A front has pushed through and brought drier air into the southeast, pushing most of the rain into Florida. This will be a running theme as we look at the forecast map over the next couple days and weeks. Saturday's shows a weakening system with the moisture creeping back to the north from the Gulf. However, most of the heavy rain will remain along the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic coasts and continue in Florida. High pressure really begins to take hold as we get to the end of the weekend, with showers and thunderstorms remaining in Florida and the front beginning to wash away as high pressure takes over. So I must sound like a broken record. The Bermuda High really does take hold in our midterm outlook, and our chances for above normal rain decrease. One side benefit to this pattern also if tropical storms do happen to form in the Atlantic, they should likely stay south of our area, and if they do get moved this far west, they should likely move past us and stay west of us. So it keeps us out of a potential tropical weather at this time. We'll have to see about that, and that developing weather pattern should continue through the end of August. With all that in mind, here is our 7-day rainfall forecast that shows most of the heavier rain in central and south Florida. The rest of the southeast should see sporadic rain with likely below normal totals for this week of the year. Week 2 looks to be much of the same with normal rainfall, and it extends into the first week of September. Chances for above normal rainfall only right along the Gulf Coast. And remember, this is the rainy season for Florida, so we do expect some heavy rain in central and south Florida for this time of year. As we begin to look further out, we will start with a look at ENSO conditions expected this fall and winter. El Niño is almost here, and temperatures in the equatorial Pacific Ocean should be in that half degree above normal range by mid-September, and that above normal warmth should continue through the winter and into spring. So, with the El Niño, what can we expect? Well, for the hurricane season, the forecast is being pared back as we expect conditions for development to be less favorable and the potential for hurricanes to be less. However, we are approaching the peak of hurricane season, which gets here in about the middle of September, and it only takes one hurricane in your area to make it feel like an active season. Be prepared in the coming few months, and we will keep you updated on the potential as we move through fall. With that being said, here is our temperature outlook for September, which keeps things warm for a good chunk of the area, from near the Gulf Coast south into Florida. And the area that we show with near normal temperatures is also the area we are expecting above normal rainfall in the Carolinas area all the way down to Georgia and those areas. While early September doesn't look especially wet right now, we will have to look at the latter second 2/3 of the month to see which will affect our seasonal forecast. And it also shows near normal temperatures in the area of, yes, you guessed it, where we're expecting above normal rainfall in that September through November time frame. El Niño falls into winter had occasionally been wet, despite the lack of tropical activity, so we will have to watch things closely to see if we remain active rainfall-wise, even if we don't see tropical weather. And now for the winter forecast, our seasonal forecast for December through February is a very traditional El Niño rainfall forecast with wetness through all of the southeast RFC area. It could potentially be a very active winter for us. We will keep you posted and update things as things change through this fall. However, this forecast is likely to stay consistent through the fall unless there is a big change in that El Niño ENSO forecast. And so the bottom line, in the short term, a quieter time for most of the southeast, although Florida does remain active, and the tropics look to remain quiet. And it's for the long term, still the tropical season forecast is adjusted down a bit for this month. However, as Jeff mentioned before, the potential is there. We've been wet enough that if we do see some sort of tropical system, there could be some problems in Florida, in Georgia, in the Carolinas, and Virginia. So it's something that we have to watch very closely because we have had a lot of rain recently, and that could have an impact if we do see some tropical weather or we just get into an active weather pattern in the coming month or two. And so we'll have to watch that very closely, and there is still the potential for an active mid to late fall and not necessarily associated with the tropics. Again, something we'll have to watch very closely, and we'll talk about this again when we do our next Water Resources Outlook, and we plan to record that on September 17th. We look forward to hearing from you. Please, if you have any questions, you have our contact information. Please feel free to call us, and we'll get back with you as soon as we can. Thank you.